So we're at the midway point in the year, and we received a lot of albums in 2021, and it kind of got off to a slow start, but now we've done our top 10 songs of the year, so it was only fitting to actually cover our top 10 rap albums of 2021. And guys, let us know in the comments your favorite rap album of the year, and stick around till the end because our number one might interest you.
Yeah,
that's going to be an interesting conversation.
There's definitely be a good list. You know, it's always subjective at the end of the day. People have to remember that like regardless of what we like, you know, the lists are going to change for everyone, and someone might have something at another place, or you know, it might always fluctuate. But guys, before we actually get into this, another thing is that our Patreon services are live right now. So you know, all of our exclusive content, all of that sort of good stuff. You know, we're YouTube creators, and obviously YouTube doesn't pay too much, so you know, we try to do as much as we possibly can for you guys. The link is live in our bio. So back to the episode, man. What was the one thing I would say, you know, you looked for when creating a list that had to be strong and coherent? Like, what were standouts for you?
I mean, definitely a replay value, definitely, you know, lyricism and content matter, because I feel like, at least in the trap lane this year, there hasn't been too many crazy efforts, I would say.
Yeah, we got roasted.
Yeah.
We got roasted for a couple of our
we actually have a couple trap albums in here, and we're going to get to them soon. But I mean, overall, I was just looking for an album that amazed me and that took chances. That's a big thing for me.
Yeah, another thing that I see off this list right here is that, you know, still it's pretty dominant by underground rappers as well. Even some UK, which I think it's going to be the first UK album we actually talk about on the show.
It is.
We might start diving into some more UK content because there's something really good on this list. But
let's get into the honorable mentions first. So,
yeah, let's do that.
One that I have would be Haram by The Alchemist and Arm & Hammer. That was great. Another one would be The Course of the Inevitable by Lloyd Banks.
That was fire.
That was great too.
That was really nice. Seeing Lloyd Banks return after such a long time and seeing what he was able to do with his album. Really, really, really solid effort. And it was cool because he had also gotten shout outs by like all kinds of major people, and like people were happy to see him come back. So
yeah,
you know, shout out Lloyd Banks. He's a fucking legend. He's a GOAT. So let's get on to number 10. You know, and this is The Life of Pierre 5. Guys, listen. You know, we weren't able to cover this on the night of just because, like, you know, we had gotten out the Polo G and Migos review, but man, this is a solid fucking effort.
That was the best album of that night, surprisingly.
Absolutely.
And we actually, you know, covered the full album review in our Patreon. So that was cool to do. And this album really excited me because I knew that Pierre Bourne is one of the most influential and I would say recognizable producers in the game right now, because, you know, he's gotten behind artists such as Playboi Carti, Lil Uzi Vert, Lil Yachty, even Kanye West on Jesus is King. So he's been a big name for a while, and he has a very stylized sound, and we get that same type of video game arcade soundscape on The Life of Pierre 5. And from top to bottom, from the transitions to all the production choices, the way that he makes you feel like the album is one big beat, that really, you know, blew me away.
Yeah, the sequencing on this album was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, obviously the start of the album starts off on a bit of a higher note, in my opinion. That's one thing that I did notice.
Yeah, it falls off towards the second half for sure.
It's not that it falls off for me. It's just like, I would say the first half of the project is stronger for me, but regardless, like the sequencing was so good within the whole album that it allowed me to go through the whole track list. And this clocks in at an hour listen and has, I believe, 16 different tracks, if my memory serves me correct, with only 3 features. So, you know, you kind of understand what type of album you're going to get just based on those sort of statistics. And, you know, Pierre Bourne as a rapper is very impressive because not many producers could rap like he does, let alone create a whole cohesive project. Not only that, but I mean, it's probably one of his best, The Life of Pierre's installments in his whole series. So, you know, congratulations to him, man. And, you know, do you think that this is, you know, maybe the standard for, I would say, trap producing at this point? Because who's really producing albums like this?
Yeah, it definitely is a standard. The only competition in terms of, I would say, trap producers that are making full blown out projects is Metro Boomin with Not All Heroes Wear Capes, which is kind of bounds and leaps above this, but this was still a really solid effort. I love what Pierre did with the rapping. You know, he uses these ad-libs mid-verse, and he also gives us insight on a song like Couch. He talks about how, you know, growing up, he would be sleeping on his brother's couch, and how he was struggling to make it as a producer, and how now that he's in the fame, he kind of lost that relationship with his brother. Also talks about his grandmother on
the intro track
on
as
the
well.
intro, and then switching lanes.
Yeah, she wants a car, and then after that, he's on that phone call, and then he's talking about when he's going to be back in South Carolina, and that he's going to be in Atlanta, and he'll be able to meet up with her. So there was definitely a good amount of relatable content within this, especially for something that's that's in the trap genre. And listen, really solid effort. But let's move on to number 9, because this is a great album as well, and it is a Gangsta's Pain by Moneybagg Yo. And this was something that went under the radar, I feel as if, for a lot of trap fans, but yet still sold a lot first week.
It sold a lot, man. I think it sold 100K copies first week. And honestly, I was sleeping on this. Like I was really late to this listen, and I don't know why. I guess it kind of just, I didn't see too much of it on social media. I didn't see, too many people talking about it, but it did sell. And Moneybagg Yo really blew me away, especially for an album that's 22 songs. I didn't expect the production to be this good. I didn't expect for his flows and his delivery to be as solid as they were. And honestly, if you look at other Southern rappers like Key Glock, let's say, or like Duke Deuce, he really stands on his own, because I would say he's kind of more influenced by ATL Trap. And not only that, but I mean, his voice has a very bluesy feeling to it.
It does. His voice, throughout that whole project, you're going to notice that his voice and his rapping match perfectly with the production. And, as you just said, like, I'm going to run through a couple of songs here that have fantastic production, like Shot Us, Hard for the Next with Future was super, really, like, that was crazy.
Did you know that the Neptunes produced 2 songs on this?
Really? What 2 songs were they?
One of them was the one that featured Pharrell.
Okay, let me see this. Well, that probably makes sense. That's Certified Neptunes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fire. Even Bipolar Virgo is fire. And there's also a lot of introspective writing in this.
There is.
Like, it's also like, Moneybagg Yo gets really deep with his life, and he starts talking about, yes, obviously, like, this is all glitz and glam, and like, this is what we paint for you, but there's a whole different side to this career that, people don't see, and that people don't necessarily even want to feel, because the shit that we go through is absolutely ridiculous. So, do you think that right now, as far as like Memphis trap, or Memphis as a whole, that he's like the leader of that genre? Because you said that he was influenced by, Atlanta trap, especially with his production, but I still find like his flow, his cadence, his delivery is still like extremely heavily Memphis based. So what do you feel about that?
Yeah, he's definitely, one of the top contenders for that. And, apart from the introspective tracks on the album, you even get bangers like Time Today, which he came out with Floyd Mayweather at the Mayweather-Logan Paul fight.
Fire.
Walking to the ring with Mayweather, performing that song, and serious banger. He's kind of rapping on that song about how people are praying for his downfall, and those same people are bumping his mixtapes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that kind of content. And another standout would be Waukesha.
Waukesha's fire.
That was a banger. And I think
that's the track where he sort of personifies lean, right?
He's talking about his addiction to lean and how he kind of wants to quit it. And he also has Lil Wayne on the intro talking about how he's dependent on lean, and
it's crazy. It's good. There's
really
so
good.
It's a really in-depth album. Like, there's a lot to grab out of it. I mean, listen, if we would have known, like, fuck, we sometimes we miss over these album reviews that I would love to go back and be able to review first night. But this was definitely a great standout this year, and probably going to be the best album to come out of Memphis if I had to put my guess this year.
Yeah, but probably not the best album out of Tennessee, because Isaiah Rashad is coming.
We still got Isaiah Rashad coming. But listen, let's actually move on to number 8, and this is The Plugs I Met 2 by Benny the Butcher. And this has been anticipated for a while, and I remember when I heard Harry Fraud was going to be taking care of most of this production, I was like, wow, this is going to be an incredible album. It's a good album, but I was a bit let down by the whole listen. I'm going to be honest with you, man.
Why were you let down?
I don't know. I feel as if, like, as soon as you start to brand something The Plugs I Met, especially with the first one, it didn't carry that same cadence for me. Especially, like, I feel as if, like, the French Montana feature low-key wasn't needed. And, there wasn't, like, besides a couple of songs, there wasn't really a lot that made my rotation like that. But as a whole, and for the quality of the production and what Benny's rapping.
Still one of the best rap albums of the year.
Definitely. I'm just saying, like, as a listener, I'll still go to The Plugs I Met first, like the first one.
Oh, the first one, yeah.
Is miles ahead of this one.
It's much better. I mean, you had 18-Wheeler, you had Crown for Kings with Black Thought, who had dropped one of the best feature verses of the 2010s, in my opinion.
Yes, sir.
But speaking on The Plugs I Met 2, I mean, it was cool to see him link up solely with Harry Fraud, and kind of the more, I would say, minimalistic and somber beats that he had brought. I mean, even if you look at a song like Plug Talk, that Japanese sample from the 70s that was used throughout that song hit so hard. And in terms of the features, I really liked what he did. Even that posthumous verse from Chinks was really good.
The Fat Joe feature was impressive too. I didn't expect Fat Joe to deliver a crazy verse like that. He really went hard for Benny's track list, and even some of the more low key tracks, like, oh, I'm even playing the song right now. My bad. No Instructions, Live by It, like, those are some of my favorite tracks that Benny's ever created. If I'm gonna be honest with you, just because like it gives a bit more. I like when he gives updates about his life, and he does it in sort of like a example, like a Gangsta's Pain, if I could sort of put it like in that perspective for you, where it's showing how there's another side to this, and then he gives his perspective on it.
Yeah, so he gives kind of the perfect hybrid between a rapper and being a street guy. And to me, Benny the Butcher right now is the king of the one-liners. I mean, if you just look bar for bar, the kind of punches that he gives, it's always knocking you out of the park. And there's one bar that actually stood out to me, and one of them is, "You're not a gangster till they put you on the paper once."
Fire.
And that actually, obviously, his collective and his label is the Black Soprano family, and that line about wanting to be put in the paper and only being recognized as a gangster till you're put in the paper reflects to an episode in The Sopranos. I don't know if you remember that episode, but it's when Christopher Moltisanti is going crazy wanting to get his name written in the paper, and like he's doing a bunch of extravagant shit, trying to kind of almost get caught just for that recognition. And that also kind of has a double parallel because it relates to how much wild shit artists nowadays would do to really get their name up there in the industry. So
yeah, and I find that's always a cool thing within Benny's writing too, is that there's so many double entendres and there's so many different sort of messages to take out of it. I mean, Live by It is fantastic because it's so personal, but you go line through line and you just get this super deep introspectiveness from Benny, and it's crazy because Benny has grown in a completely different situation that I've grown up in. But the thing is that I take parallels out of his life and some of the struggles that he's gone into his life, and it motivates me to get past a certain amount of let's say holdbacks in mind. So that's what I got of the plugs I met too, was fantastic production by Harry Fraud, a fantastic production by Benny, and I think the only letdown for me was just comparing it to the plugs I met. But obviously when you put it into a series like that, the comparison is merited, so whatever, it is what it is. But it's definitely still standout for me this year.
I have a question for you. So I mean, obviously Benny on this album raps about catching up to legends, and I feel like with the quality of his discography and his amazing beat selection, he is going to get there. And on the song Longevity, he talks about kind of how he's going to be around for a while. Yeah. So do you see his kind of stature really evolving and growing past where he is right now, or will he kind of stay comfortable in his lane?
I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do, because it's so interesting, because like Burden of Proof was such a high for me. The plug, you got Time to Talk 3, you got the plugs I met, Burden of Proof, and then the plugs I met 2. And the thing for me is that like Time to Talk 3 to Burden of Proof, that was all on an even playing field for me. Like that for me was a fantastic 3-project run, super legendary for like a New York run,
potential future classics.
Absolutely. And well, Time to Talk 3 is a classic for me, and the plugs I met is probably a classic.
Too early for me to say, but it probably will age.
Yeah, like I'm gonna keep a lot of those songs in my rotation. But the thing is that like, I don't know. I don't want him to go pop. Like I don't want him to go too commercial. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, he's nice. He's nice when he's making coherent music that he knows his diehard Griselda fans are gonna fuck with.
But if he's working with more pop artists, let's say, pop rap artists, let's say like Drake, for example,
or French Montana,
or Lil Baby, I don't mind if he can get the bars out of them and bring them over to his side. I'm all for it.
No, I know.
You know what I mean?
I'm all for it too. But it's kind of like.
Anyways,
he makes really good fucking projects, if you get what I'm trying to say. Like the thing is that I wouldn't want to see Lil Baby on like a Time to Talk 3, or
True.
let's say on like a Burden of Proof. Like for me, it wouldn't make sense.
It doesn't fit stylistically, right?
Yeah, it's not that it does, like. The fuck, like, what's the correlation? You get what I'm trying to say? Like the collaboration for a single, or let's say for a mixtape feature.
Look, man, if I told you that J. Cole and Lil Baby were gonna collab on a J. Cole album, you would have told me that I was crazy.
No, I could see that. I would have definitely.
I would have never expected that before seeing the off-season track list. But I mean, anyways, let's move on to another Griselda release. And on number 7, we have "Pray for Haiti" by Mac Homie. So. Mac Homie is really one of the most mysterious figures in all of hip-hop right now, just because his face is always covered with the bandanas and whatever other masks he's wearing at certain times.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you can't access his lyrics on Genius.
Not only that, but you can't access a lot of his albums on streaming. Like apparently, I was talking to Fagella about this, and he was telling me like he was doing things on Audio Mac where he'd be selling like albums and exclusive merchandise and whatever it is for a set price.
He sells vinyls for $3,000 a piece,
and people go crazy and they buy a lot of stuff off of him. Not only that, but I was able to take a look at his merchandise lines, and like they're beautiful, bro. Like this guy's a really talented artist, and going into Pray for Haiti, like this is my first time actually listening to a Mac Homie, excuse me, album. You know, it was crazy because I didn't understand anything because I didn't necessarily listen to anything because I never accessed any of his music before. But when I had gone in and I had started listening to the production, I mean, already like when you start off with the 26 Letter, like that is an incredible introduction track to this album. Not only that, but the sort of Haitian influence and Haitian culture that you get within this track list not only is super fitting for the vibe of the album, but is something that I've never even seen in a hip-hop album.
It's very rich in culture, and it kind of reminds me of what West Side Gun did with Pray for Paris, and it's so dope that he's curating this, and now I think there's talks of West Side Gun actually curating like a Dave East album. So
that's fire.
What West Side Gun is doing, man, for these artists who need maybe an extra push to get more eyes on them and to create these phenomenal projects, I'm all for it. And look, Mac Homie on this project, you know, if you're looking at his complex rhyme schemes, if you're looking at you know, his Creole singing, that hit home for me. And
even the Creole skits between songs and the track sequencing was really, really, really well done. I mean, going from the 26 Letter to No Blood, No Sweat to Folie à Dieu, Markel Jackson, like there's just way too much stuff that's going on, you know? So that's definitely one of my biggest standouts for the year, you know? Like, it's massive, man. And, like, what he's been able to do just from the underground and the way that he's been able to create this crazy household name, man, different level stuff.
Yeah, one of the standouts for me would probably be the Stellar Ray theory, where he's kind of...
Fire.
Yeah, he's kind of talking about resilience and how people are blaming, you know, where they're at in their lives based on their circumstances, and how they're kind of living through other people, kind of just leeching onto other people's success. And he's saying how, you know, he worked for what is his own. Besides that, I mean, you also get some braggadocious bars at times where he's rapping about, you know, having these $1,000 brunches with Hov, for example. And he deserves to be in those circles, man, because although his delivery might be monotone at certain times, in terms of the way that he structures his songs, it's super inventive and it's super artistic.
Not only that, but the cadence that he brings onto a track is really, really, really refreshing. As I said, like, you know, deep with culture, with all the, like, you know, with all like the Haitian cultural references and, you know, the types of sounds that he was putting in there. Not only that, but I love the album cover, you know, with the fishermen, and like it's super abstract. And, you know, I guarantee if anyone...
I think that was a famous piece of art that, like, similar to what they did with Pray for Paris, they kind of like... They
kind of tweaked it. Oh, I have no background on that, but listen, guys, if you guys have information on that in the comment section, drop it. I'd like to know about that. But, you know, let's move on to number 6, To Kill a Sunrise by Code of the Friend, produced by Static Selecta,
and entirely produced by Static.
When I heard Code of the Friend and Static Selecta were going to be coming together, I was like, this is going to be one smooth fucking ride, man.
Oh, man. Honestly, the best way for me... And by the way, if you guys are not familiar with Code of the Friend, I mean, he's one of the best underground artists in the game right now. One of the best lyricists. And just the best way for me to describe this project, honestly, it feels like it's like... For me, it's kind of like a sunset for your ears.
It is.
It's just utter bliss and peace.
Well, not only that, but like it's such a short track list. Like it's only 10 songs, and it's the perfect track list for a car listen. That's what I think I like the album the most for. Is like it's one of my favorite car listens because, you know, I start off with Wolves, I go into Hate, I go in with The Cold, and like already those 3 songs to like start off the whole track list really get me in the groove of stuff. And like you're hearing these Static Selecta beats, and, you know, just the overall jazz influence, and, you know, bringing in that New York flavor into this track list.
That boom bap production. And not only so that, jazzy and so soulful, man. I loved it.
And Coda's cozy and fucking beautiful, like I would say, like calm, like delivery just glides over those Static Selecta beats. So do you think that maybe it was one of the best delivered albums sonically this year?
100%. And I think that in terms of technical rapping, when you're just looking at rhyme schemes, double entendres, internal rhyming, all that sort of stuff, this is up there, probably in the top 3. And on the song Wolves, he literally plays a game of lyrical chess with us. So I'm going to read you through a bar.
I like this.
All right?
Okay, let's hear this.
Swore I was a rookie. I took his queen with a bishop. People always coming at me sideways. King, you guys pawns. I'm with Hove and Nas controlling the board. So he's kind of describing his position in the rap game, but through a game of lyrical chess, like I just said, man.
Yeah.
And that shit's mind-blowing. You go through a song, let's say, like The Cold, and there he's kind of rapping about how no matter the negative experiences he might have in his life and the bad shit that might happen to him or people around him, he tries to make it into an optimistic journey, and he tries to kind of flip that.
Well, yeah, his content matter is so positive. That's what I love about it too, is that, you know, it gets extremely introspective, like a lot of these rappers on this list, but he does it in a way where, like, it's not necessarily grimy. Like, he really knows how to use his lyrics to match his delivery, and like that's how Coda really, you know, shapes his sound within his album, at least for my listening. So, you know, who would you like to see Coda collab with next as far as a producer? Because this Static Selecta album definitely worked out for him.
Who would I want to see him collab with as a producer? Ooh, that's tough. I would say,
someone like Harry Fraud would do really nice.
Harry Fraud would be nice.
Just because of like that laid back production that I've already seen him do with like Currency. That would be someone in my mind.
I would say probably The Alchemist as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I could see him writing out some soul samples. That would be a nice change of course. But yeah, honestly, for me, this album was just a big self-empowerment album, and he raps a lot about kind of manifesting the good things that have happened to him. You know what I mean? He raps about how he actually like thanks the fans for listening to the music like more than once in the album, because he knows what stage he's at in his life, and he's had major label offers, but he's chose that independent route, and he's striving in it right now. And honestly, I mean, you know, he's rapping about his legacy, putting on for his children, and from song to song, and even the feature, I think it was Haley Supreme.
Haley Supreme was on
amazing
the 5th track, I believe.
Amazing hook, one of the best hooks of the year, and from top to bottom, this album kept me engaged, and
beautiful listen.
Yeah, really beautiful.
A really nice listen. But listen, guys, we're halfway through the list, and you know, now that we're halfway through the list, let me ask you a quick little question before I get on with number 5. You know, how are you liking the year so far? You know, just looking at like what we've gotten, you know, where the industry's going, you know, who are the key players? Like, you know, what are you thinking? What's the vibe for you?
It's been a really interesting year, you know, because it started off super slow, and now we're getting to a point where you know, people like Tyler the Creator, Drake, Travis Scott, kind of the bigger mainstream acts are coming out to play. So I'm happy for the artists that release music because they've had the time for their fans to sit with it and not have too much competition. And honestly, like we saw in 2020 and 2019, the underground is still striving.
They are still striving. They're eating. They're going so strong. Like, it's crazy what these guys are able to do, especially like someone like, you know, Mac Homie. Like, he's literally, you know, like when I remember him doing that rollout, like I was taken away by it because I never really understood like what his music was.
Yeah,
you know, I've always heard about like the exclusiveness to his listen, like how you have to pay a lot of money to be able to, you know, get a piece of merchandise from him, whether like, you know, it's a record or, you know, anything that he's making fashion wise. So, you know, just the way that they're doing it and the way that they're able to tap into the communities is absolutely genius. And listen, if you want to talk about quality music, these guys are always delivering. These guys know that, you know, when it comes to quality, they can never miss because fuck it, like they have such core fan bases that they have to feed. But with that being said, let's get on to our number 5 spot, and this is Tyrone by Slow Thigh.
I think it's pronounced Tyron.
Tyron, excuse me, Tyron. Yeah, Tyron
by Slow Thigh, and
yeah, you guys put that in the bloopers. My bad.
Yeah, so this is kind of the first UK album that we touch on, and this came as a major surprise to me because I wasn't too familiar with him before this album release, and this is my first time diving into one of his projects, and I would say that he's very influenced by UK grime, and that's kind of what the aesthetic is the most similar to on the project. And it's a short listen. I think it clocks in at about half an hour.
35 minutes.
Yeah, and I was blown away just at his delivery and how the album kind of switches. To me,
yeah, the concept of the album is fucking genius. Like the way the first track list starts off, like on a grimier, more UK like grime sort of note, especially with the Skepta feature, and then you obviously get that ASAP Rocky feature,
which was
and that
fucking dope.
Both were super fire, and then you get into the second half of the album, and then like you see like names like James Blake start to pop off. Like the tempo slows down a bit. He gets a bit more introspective about him, gets a bit more vulnerable. So, you know, as far as a concept album goes, like, could we call it that? Do you think we could call it a double-sided concept album?
I think you can definitely call it a concept album because the whole album is about change. I mean, what I love the most about this project is that it's Slow Tie kind of looking to better himself. You know, he's not happy with kind of his past decisions. He's not happy with maybe the man he's become, and he wants to change, and he's putting that into motion. And what's really cool is that if you look at the first half of the track list,
it's all in
every
caps.
song is in caps, and then the second half is in kind of lowercase letters.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when you have the tonal switch from harder hitting grime beats to stuff that are kind of more relaxed and more low key.
And I love the transition between the two track lists as well. Like Play with Fire and I Tried, like when you go from 7 to 1, which is going to be the second half of the track list, like when you get to like, it would be considered track 8 because there's 14 tracks in total. It's a really nice transition, and like it doesn't sound like it's not well done. Like it was done in a way where you sort of understand the flow of the album because, as you said, Slow Tie is going through these changes, and he is bringing in a new maybe sort of sound into his music career. And like that's what's cool about it is like, you know, let's say I talk about a song like Feel Away. Like I believe this was actually a standout single for the album when it first dropped.
Yeah, I think so.
My sister had sent me this track. I was really taken away by it because, you know, I was used to him for his UK grime. Like that's what I was really used to him for. And this has a much more mellowed out production. You got fantastic vocals by James Blake. So, you know, this is definitely one of, you know, the best concept projects this year. Like
100%.
Just as far as like, you know, not only aesthetic goes, but just artist performance.
And the first kind of feeling that I got going through the first listen to the project was that, you know, I would say his voice and kind of his delivery reminds me of someone like Skepta, but like his lyrics and kind of his track presence and the way that like he feels, especially in the first half of the album, kind of like an animated character that pops off of your headphones. That reminded me of Eminem in the sense that his raps are very wild. He's talking about, you know, doing some wild, violent shit. It kind of, you know, showed me a bit of an Eminem influence, and that was really dope to see. I would say that a standout for me was actually Push off of the second half of the track list.
Fantastic.
And on that track, you know, he's kind of talking about how he feels alone in life because a lot of his friends and people that he grew up with ended up in jail, and how
that's a song with the skit where he calls his friends, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure. I think so. Because I could be wrong though.
Because I know what you're talking about. I done a couple of listens today, and I don't remember exactly what track that's on. But a standout for me would probably be Cancelled with Skepta.
Oh, it was a banger.
It was such a banger, and like, you know, it's hard for me to get into UK grime and like, you know, more like try to like gauge where I'm at, even if like maybe you could call this UK grime. Like, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's nice because they were able to create such a coherent track together on a production that fucking slaps. Like that is one of the hardest beats I heard this year.
And the song is about cancel culture,
Absolutely.
which, you know, fuck yeah. I mean, honestly, cancel culture has to kind of fade away because people are taking it too far at a certain point. You know what I mean? I mean, yes, we have to hold people accountable for pretty much anything they do that's out of line, but, you know, people jumped the gun too quick, and it was cool to, you know, hear kind of their thoughts on it. But overall, I feel like Slow Tie really brought a refreshing sense of duality through the boastfulness from the first half of the track list, and then kind of more the introspection on the second half.
Absolutely. So let's jump into our top 4 now. At number 4, we have Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine by Brockhampton, and we've been waiting for a new Brockhampton album now for a while before this. And the thing is that once we had gotten this Brockhampton album, man, what a beautiful fucking delivery. And we've spoken about this album quite a couple of times on this podcast.
A lot, yeah.
And I can't get enough of it because it's such a beautiful concept album, and the production on it is A1. Kevin Abstract did a flawless job executive producing and, you know, carrying out the vision of this project. So, you know, what were your first initial thoughts when you finished off that first listen?
Honestly, to me, it felt like a big group therapy session. You know what I mean? It felt like they were all there to kind of support, I would say, the two main you know, artists that were featured on the whole track list, which were Kevin Abstract and Joba, of course, more so on Joba. But this project is Brockhampton's most mature album. I think that it's their best project since the Saturation series. And honestly, in terms of execution, to me, it's the best concept album of the year.
That's true.
I mean, it starts off, you know, with the first song, Buzzcut, which has that crazy Danny Brown feature where he goes on this lyrical rampage. And at the end of that song, you know, Kevin Abstract questions God, and he questions like, is there a God? And that's something that comes back on a song like The Light, where of course Joba loses his father because his father committed suicide, and Joba's questioning his faith and wondering, is there a higher power out there? Is there a light that could really save me? And that's kind of the whole idea and theme of God and a higher power is something that plays throughout the entire project, because you even get it on a song like Dear Lord, let's say, where Bareface is delivering a prayer to Joba.
Not only that, but I mean, you understand the shift in the track list. Like once you get to The Light and go on to Windows all the way to The Light Part 2, it's a much softer side to the album than the first one. So I feel as if like The Light was that breaking point between the first and the first half of the track list and the second one. And even The Light Part 2, ending off with just that whole gospel vibe and whatever else is going on with the album was super beautiful to do, and tied the whole concept through together. And who do you think could challenge a concept album like this
year?
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, I don't think. No, I wouldn't call Pusha T a concept album artist. I mean, who could do it? Isaiah Rashad with The House is Burning, if that's a concept album.
Okay.
It sounds like it will be from the title. Apart from that, I mean, I don't know. No one else is really coming to mind. What about you?
No, I really do think that this is going to end up being my favorite concept album of the year, just because like it's been so strong so far. And I think like not only did everyone perform well on this, but the production was fucking fantastic. Like that's another thing that I'm looking for in these albums, by the way, guys, is like going through all these albums, the production is always spot on. So, do you think that we're getting some of the best produced albums that we've gotten in years this year?
100%. And I mean, if you look at, this album especially, it's just so diverse from track to track. I mean, at certain times, you'll get a Neptune's produced beat on When I Ball. Apart from that, you have Romil, who brought in these very, I would say, off-kilter and very hectic productions that are very experimental. And honestly, they did a great job of changing the vibe and aesthetic from track to track, really.
Yeah. It was crazy the way that they're able to carry a track list and make it coherent as one, and it's beautiful. And like you guys, like it's probably like the 5th time we talk about this album on the podcast, or we have it in one of our lists, and it's for a good reason. It's just because it's way too good, and like there's way too much to take out of it.
Do you think that Joba found the light by the end of this album?
Oh, that's such a personal question.
I definitely think so, because on the album cover you see him kind of covered by that white shadow, which is a white light.
I think it definitely helped him with that whole process.
To me, yeah,
sure.
I think him making this album was kind of his way of grieving with his father's loss, putting it into words and making poetry out of the situation. It was beautiful, and I love the way that every artist came together. Shout out Merlin Wood, by the way, too. He went off on songs like Windows. But everybody performed, and I feel like this is it could end up being their best album.
Absolutely. So let's go move on to the top 3, because this is really nice now. And this might shock people. There's a couple of sleeper picks in here. And, I was talking to Lou about this, and there's definitely some standouts here. And what do you think merits a spot in our top 3? Like, what are the criteria for you?
Definitely just not having any misses on the album. So, like, front to back, every song has to be quality. Apart from that, I mean, I think that these artists had to come with something unique, had to do something different, had to challenge themselves. And all 3 artists that we're going to be talking about in the rest of the list all did that.
That is true. Okay, let's move on to number 3. We have La Machina by Conway the Machine, and this is a fucking standout. Like, this is maybe one of my favorite Conway the Machine projects, and just start to finish, it feels so grand. It feels so unique from anything that he's ever done before. And it's crazy because this project should be getting talked about a lot more within the hip-hop community.
Yeah, it was totally slept on, man. And I feel like it was because he didn't put too much promotion behind it. But what Conway was able to do, the way that, he says it himself on the song 630 Tip-Off. He says, this is the machine redesigned. And what he did here is that he decided to rap over some trap instrumentals and to challenge, what his usual soundscape is. You know what I mean? If you look at a song like KD, he's rapping on Murda Beats production.
Yeah.
Who the fuck would have expected that? And he kind of, takes homage from Kodak Black's flow on No Flockin'. And it was a really good sight to see. And I felt like, right now, Conway the Machine, in terms of his rapping, he's at the top of the game.
Yeah, his lyricism is top level quality.
It is.
And he's at a point in his career where I feel as if he's just going to continue putting out great projects because, you know, I like the fact that they're super underground and super low key projects. Like that's what I fuck with them about. You know, like that's more or less my vibe. Like being able to go to a track list and like, you know, not everyone's going crazy over it and not everyone's overhyping it. Like I like these sort of gems within it. Even, you know, 200 Pies with 2 Chainz. You know, that is such a fantastic track. I mean, the mellowed out production with the vocals in the background of the production, and then
fucking Alchemist, man. You can't go wrong with him.
Like
you can't.
When I heard that The Alchemist was going to be on the same track as Conway the Machine and 2 Chainz, I'm like, what direction is this going to go into? Because, you know, 2 Chainz and Conway the Machine are two guys that still go on like very hard hitting beats, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like not guys that like, you know, usually take the mellow approach, but this was something completely different. Like this felt like I was in that smoke session with them.
6:30 tip off. Bangladesh still had the best beat on the album.
That's for sure.
Though.
That is
but
for sure.
Alchemist comes with a close second.
Do you think 6:30? Well, where did we put 6:30 tip off in our?
I think it was like number 10 on our songs of the year list.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, but I mean,
that was a standout for me.
Yeah, even if you look at a song like Scatterbrain, where you have Jid and Ludacris,
that was nuts.
They went crazy.
Did you see the video for that?
I did see the video.
Fire, eh?
It looks like they're in like a trap house or something, right?
It's really nice.
Yeah, man, that was awesome, and I just love also the content matter that Conway's rapping about here. Of course, he makes a reference to the incident where he got shot, which led to his Bell's palsy, and kind of how the doctors told him, you know, you got shot 3 times, you're probably never going to be able to rap again, and how he felt defeated. But as time went on and he was recovering, he really pushed harder to make a name for himself. And it was after that whole incident that he actually blew up as a rapper. So to see him kind of be determined and not make any circumstance in life put him down, and to see him excel the way that he did is fucking inspiring.
Yeah, the writing on this album is phenomenal. You know, like Conway always comes in with new insight, new game, and you know, you're listening to an OG, like you're listening to a guy that's been through it. Like this guy got fucking shot in the back of his neck, and like this guy's still rapping at 1,000,000, you know, at 1,000,000%.
And
like
he makes it seem so easy, man. It feels like he's so comfortable in his delivery, and that's something that I love about him.
The confidence is incredible within his cadence and his delivery, and I think that's a major standout for me, is that, you know, from start to finish, you're just going to find him comfortable. You're going to find him in a zone where, like, you know, no flow is off or nothing sounds off beat, or, you know, he doesn't miss a note because he is so confident in his delivery and he's so confident in his lyricism that it doesn't necessarily faze him. So yeah, it's definitely a massive standout
to me. I mean, yeah, this album was kind of glamour, and then you got the side where you see Conway's battle scars, you could say. And I also love that, you know, he did put on for his new artist that he signed to his label Drumwork, you have features from Jay Skis and 7 Vex the Genius, and honestly, they really earned their spot on this track list, and Grace is one of the best songs on the album, without a doubt.
That is facts. But let's move on to number 2, guys, and this is where stuff gets a bit spicy. We got Exodus by DMX, and you know, a lot of people were not a fan of this project.
Mixed reception.
Mixed reception because of like the apparently the mixing and mastering was a bit off to them. And honestly, like, I don't know, I don't find like it touched the album at all. Like, I don't find it ruined my experience at all. Like, this album is fucking incredible. Like, I really have zero gripes with the engineering and mixing. Yeah, like, I liked it.
To me, it kind of felt like a powerhouse 2000s rap album, because I mean, you got features from non-hip-hop artists, from you know, from the likes of Alicia Keys and Bono.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I feel like the beats are kind of very fast-paced and in your face. And honestly, look, I don't find that there's major issues with the mixing and mastering. Maybe it could have been a little bit more refined, but I do think that, you know, Swizz Beatz did a good job with the beats for the most part. And I mean, look, you know, DMX really made an album about his legacy, and these are some of his most personal and well-written songs of his entire career. If you look at a song like Call Me, what was it called? Letter to My Son. That was the one where you had Usher and you had Brian King Joseph with the violin. That was one of the best compositions of the year. You had delicate guitar strings, you had the piano riff, you had, of course, the violin, and then DMX is rapping about how he's no longer in touch with his son, and he's reaching out to him. He's stretching his arm, and he's asking his son to call him, and Usher's hook on that is beautiful.
It is nice. And then, you know, shout out to the Jay-Z and Nas feature. Like,
that was fire.
They had delivered some of the best verses that I've heard from them in a long time. And I also like how DMX sort of let everyone have their part first before he even jumped on his own tracks. Like, that was super nice to see, because, you know, following that whole theme throughout the track list, I believe there's only one other song song on the track list that didn't do it that way. I'd have to go back and check
Walking
it out.
in the Rain, maybe?
I think it was Walking in the Rain, and that's probably my favorite song on the whole track list as well. That was really nice to see because, you know, this album was stacked with features and, you know, not one of them missed. Like this got like the track list, like the features on this track list were amazing. They were amazing. It really, really, really felt, you know, wholesome. Like if I could put it like that, like it felt like it added that extra push to the track list that it needed. Like I don't think, you know, DMX alone on this would have been, you know, just enough for me to get past it. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I still feel like, tell me if you agree, but I feel like DMX still doesn't get the flowers he deserves. I mean, I think this album only sold like 30,000 copies first week, man, and it's tragic that, like, you know, sometimes just people aren't there to support regardless of his status as one of the best artists of all time in the hip-hop genre. And yeah, what are your thoughts on that, man, of how the album didn't sell too high?
Listen, it's the industry. Like, I'm not surprised anymore. Like,
You're not surprised?
Like, no, I'm not surprised. Like, I don't really look at that. Like, it doesn't necessarily like hit me home.
Yeah, it doesn't take away from the quality.
No, exactly. So like that's why like I'm kind of all worried about it. But you know, I'm just happy that he was able to deliver such a beautiful album. Like that's what I got out of it. Like regardless of the standouts or, you know, nitpicking the production or going into the engineering, like it was just a beautiful album. Like,
yeah,
you know, this has to make your rotation because there is so much heartwarming messages within it. Like, you know, you have, you know, legends like Jay-Z and Nas coming back and, you know, delivering fantastic verses. You know, you have, you know, great vocal performances from Alicia Keys and Bono on this track list. Like, you know, there's so much richness to take away from here. It's like, how could you not dive back in and go look at it?
And I just love even like that a lot of these songs had full-blown concepts behind them. If you look at a song like Money, Money, Money with Moneybagg Yo, you have two flip sides. You have Moneybagg Yo rapping about how, you know, how luxury and a life of wealth has really made him happy and has, you know, brought him a lot of success. And then you have DMX saying like, you know, fuck money, fuck getting girls. It's not about that. It's about love, and it's about, you know, kind of sharing positivity with the people around you. And you get a couple other songs like that where he really dives deep into what he wanted to manifest in the world and just introspection in a different way.
Absolutely. You know, DMX's introspection and his, you know, his writing is just, it's way too deep and personal. Like it's so raw, it's so genuine. And that's the one thing that you will get out of this track list is like every time he finishes off a song, you know, you almost feel like you want to cry. Like that's what I felt as if the first time I listened to it was like, fuck, especially ending off the track list with Letter to My Son. Like,
yeah,
that was a beautiful way to end off that album because, you know, it was showing everything that he regretted in life and, you know, sort of teaching his son not to follow in his footsteps with that. So I loved how he closed off with it. But let's actually move on to number one.
This is it, man. Number one album of the year. And
do you think, hold on, before we get into this, do you think that this will be our number one by the time we get to the end?
Oh, it's tough. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think someone will come and surpass this album. It might be Isaiah. It might be Pusha T. It might be someone like Black Thought if he appears out of nowhere.
But at number one, we do have to have the J. Cole's offseason.
And I don't think anyone's surprised.
If you guys were watching, the offseason is fucking incredible.
If you guys were watching from the beginning, you're probably like, okay, they still haven't mentioned it. They still haven't mentioned it. It has to be a number one. And of course it is. I mean, this album gets better with every single listen.
That is so facts. That is so fucking facts. And starting off with like 95 South, that's a W. Amari, a W. My Life, mega W. Applying Pressure, mega W. You know, Punching the Clock, W. Like, there is so many W's in this track list that it's so hard not to play it from start to finish. Like, I have a hard time looking at this track list on my phone and being like, okay, I want to go to Straight Let Go of My Hand.
Yeah.
Or let's say I want to go to like, you know, let's say even the Climb Back, because like that's a fantastic track as well and actually sort of fit the vibe of the whole track list. So, you know, what do you think, like, especially now that we've done the review, we did that whole rollout, like, what are a couple of things that, you know, resonated with you going into it?
Yeah, I think the major thing for me was that J. Cole had fun making this album. And that made me have fun listening to it because he went completely out of his comfort zone. I mean, if you look at songs like Amari or 100 Mil, he's really trying out these melodic flows and he's pulling them off for the most part. Not only that, but I mean, I haven't heard J. Cole rap the way that he did on Applying Pressure or on 95 South maybe since his mixtape days, man. And I think that the major reason why this album was so good and felt so natural to J. Cole's creative process was the fact that he wasn't so caught up with pleasing his fan base and, you know, trying to make that perfect concept album that he kind of, let's say, chased with, you know, with For Your Eyes Only and KOD, let's say, which he did execute very well. But I feel like he was more laid back with this, and he let the music take him where it needed to go.
Yeah, it felt like his mixtape days. That's exactly what it felt like. I feel like you heard that hunger in his voice. Like, another great thing about this album is that it gives you that perfect teaser for what's to come with the fall off. Like, if this is what we got with the off season, imagine what the fuck we're getting with the fall off. Like,
I think that's gonna be more concept based.
That is gonna be more concept based, and that's why, like, I know we all labeled it an album and that sort of shit, but dude, this has a pure mixtape feel. Like,
yeah,
you can't tell me
I just think
else.
it's just not as marketable to market,
Absolutely.
you know, your project as a mixtape in today's era.
And
but
I also want to talk about the rollout about this, because this was fantastic. It, like, you know, as a J. Cole fan, it got me so hyped because, you know, you start off with the picture of Baz in the studio, and, like, you know, he takes a picture of J. Cole in his home studio, goes up on IG, boom, gets deleted. And then J. Cole announces that there's going to be something coming out and it's called Interlude. He's giving you an interlude. Then, you know, he's on the cover of Slam magazine. You know, then he does the LA Leakers freestyle. Then, you know, there's just, like, there was so many great things that went into this, and then he ends up going to a whole different fucking continent and ends up playing professional basketball.
Yeah,
like,
man.
It was so fitting for, you know, him to tie up his, you know, his whole basketball, let's say, persona within, you know, this whole rollout. And man, it was executed.
I don't know if anyone could really, you know, top that rollout. Maybe Tyler, the Creator.
Tyler's has been good so far.
Yeah, but I really don't know. But what I really love about this project is, you know, J. Cole's confidence in himself and his abilities. I mean, if you look at a song like Applying Pressure, you kind of have that skit at the end where
it's like, remind people.
It's remind people that, like, you know, you're saying that I was this and that I wasn't that guy, but, like, I'm here to show you that I'm still that guy and that I can out rap 99% of the rappers out there. And
I got you, man. Fuck. Like, another great thing about this project is, like, it was the first time we had gotten features since Born Sinner. Like,
yeah,
that was a massive move as well. Because,
who do you think had the best feature on here?
Moray was really nice.
Moray's hook on My Life.
Moray was really, really,
those gospel
really solid.
vocals were just beautiful.
I'm a fan of the Lil Baby verse, but it's definitely, like, it's not my favorite.
That transition hit though.
The transition hit, like, it was a really well put together song. Like, I did enjoy it, but, like, I could choose a handful of other songs that I would put over it in the track list.
Yeah, I feel you.
If you want my opinion.
Honestly, Baz on Let Go of My Hand, that bridge that he did, I'm like, I did not know that Baz could sing like that. Like,
absolutely.
That shit blew me away. And I also love that. I mean, although this wasn't really a concept album, if you look at, you know, the tracks from start to finish, he's rapping in two perspectives the whole time. You know, you have the one side of him kind of boasting about his position in the game and the wealth that he's acquired, you know, comparing, you know, the amount of M's in his bank account to a real Slim Shady video. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have him rapping about kind of him growing up and, you know, being a part of that, you know, witnessing the street life and how he could have easily slipped into that, and how he got past, you know, kind of the influences in his environment to become one of the leaders of this generation, not only, you know, on a hip hop level, but on a social conscious level.
The type of writing this guy gives you is absolutely exquisite. And, you know, going back and referencing Let Go of My Hand, like, it's also nice because you get life advice from J. Cole. Like, you know, I love the whole concept of him saying, like, let life take its course and let, you know, yourself marinate in the process of that, and let yourself, you know, get these different experiences, because time is the best teacher. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, that's what I was able to gain out of that song. And I'm serious, man. It gave me a whole different perspective in that time. And still now it's like, fuck, every time I listen to this song, it's like that subtle reminder of letting myself, like, let go of these stresses and these anxieties, and being able to, you know, come back to the present moment, and letting myself just, I would say, learn about life and what it has to give to me.
Did you think that that Cole had all those flows in his arsenal, or were you surprised by them? Because there's a lot of new flows that he tried out here.
I think he did. Like, I think Cole could do anything like, he could do anything, man. The guy's just so talented, and this did not disappoint. That's literally the only thing I could say. This did not disappoint, and if he had to come back, man, it had to be like this. Like, he wasn't gonna let down his fans, and, you know, he knew what to do, and he knew that in order for him to deliver the best product possible, it just started with the confidence, and that's the first thing you hear off the track list. Not only that, but the length of the track list is perfect. It's a really nice listen.
I think it's like 40 minutes only,
it's
right?
nothing, man. It's such a beautiful listen, and this is one thing, is that people have to start understanding that these shorter track lists are W's. They're always W's, because it's such a cohesive listen. Like, you could start it from start to finish in one car ride. You know, like, I don't know how many times I've done that on the way home from, like, let's say Frank's house after doing e-com sessions. You know, like, I was just like, fuck it, let me throw it on and let me start it from 95
start
South
to finish, man.
and let me go through it. You know, So I gotta say, it's definitely my favorite of the year, and I think it'll probably end up staying there.
I think a lot of these projects will end up being, you know, I would say at least half of them are going to be in our top 10 rap albums of the year list by the end of the year.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of...
Out of the 10 that we listed, which ones do you think are going to stay in that top 10, potentially?
Okay. The off-season for sure. That's a W for me.
I think Brockhampton's Roadrunner is going to be in there too.
I would probably say... I'm not sure about Pray for Haiti.
Exodus? Maybe.
I
would say La Machina, but he's releasing his shady debut, God Don't Make Mistakes. So that's probably going to... like I think La Machina was just a warm-up, and that one's going to be on another fucking level.
Who do you think is going to crack this list, though, out of the artists that are dropping?
Pusha T is going to be in the top 5.
Isaiah Rashad, The House is Burning.
Travis with Utopia might get in there.
That's true, too.
Joey Badass, if he drops, can sneak in there, too.
Kendrick Lamar, maybe?
I don't think Kendrick's dropping, man. You see that Day in Vegas shit? Fuck, man.
So sad.
So disappointing.
Whatever. Let's keep going. What about Certified Lover Boy?
CLB. That's it's so tough, man. I mean,
did Scorpion make our top 10 in 2018? Do you remember
definitely
that?
not.
No.
There's a lot of albums better than Scorpion in 2018. I mean, that's one of the best years of 2010s. But look, there's a lot of projects that could get into the top 10, but these 10 were really solid, and I think we had a pretty diverse list, man. We had some trap albums, we had, you know, some more lyrical albums, we had
concept albums,
experimental projects,
posthumous albums as well. Like, you know, we really tried to make this list as diverse as possible for you guys, because obviously we know there's different types of listeners on the podcast. And guys, with that being said, thank you so much for coming in. You know, it's always a pleasure. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, our Patreon link is in our bio. As I said before, you know, we're really trying to push the boundaries with NFR.
Yeah,
and
guys,
do something great.
And
so
you could expect classic album reviews. You can expect, you know, new album reviews and new single reviews that we maybe didn't get the chance to cover on the YouTube. So it's really, you know, a really cool package for you guys to get exclusive content and also support us in the process. So if you guys enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you for watching the video. It's always a pleasure doing content for you guys. Listen, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because we're doing album reviews, and we actually have our series called Everything We Know, where we take you guys through the whole album rollout of the hottest releases of the year. Not only that, guys, but our Patreon plan is now live. You guys can access that in the bio. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.